very welcome to Talking Europe on France 24 and welcome to the European Council in Brussels. We join you from the sidelines of the latest European summit where major themes include the migration crisis and the eurozone's economy. Our guest today is Geórgios Katroúgalos, the Europe Minister of Greece, a country for which those two subjects have been absolutely critical over the last decade and beyond. Geórgios Katroúgalos, thank you very much for being our guest.
Thanks for the invitation.
Now, as I said, the migration crisis is such a big subject here at the summit. I've looked at the Greek government figures. We've seen that there are still 17,000 migrants on Greek islands in reception centres. Greece still a major entry point into the EU. Do you feel that Europe has left Greece in the lurch?
Well, in Greece, we had to face a perfect storm of crises, a combination of an economic one and this refugee migratory crisis. Europe tried to help. I would not say that we have been left alone. But not all European countries. One of the biggest problem we had is exactly this lack of solidarity, this lack of unity. And this is not just a problem from Greece. The future of Europe is not very, let's say, rosy if we cannot agree among ourselves for basic things like this solidarity.
Well, we have been hearing in the run-up to the summit from your Prime Minister, Alexis Tsipras, that he is ready to sign Greece up to a bilateral deal with Germany on migrants being returned to the country where they first entered the EU. Can you confirm if that deal is going to go ahead or give us more detail on how it would work?
Our position is that we need European solutions, not bilateral ones. But in order to help alleviate some specific tensions and giving us, let's say, basic precondition that we are still seeking to find a global European solution, we could have an agreement for multilateral solutions, not bilateral, not including all European countries.
Well, speaking about solidarity, Italy has been very much at the heart of this latest political crisis. Of course, the biggest entry point country at the current moment into the EU. Recently, a five-star movement MEP confirmed to our programme that Italy did refuse to allow a rescue ship, the Aquarius, to dock in Italy, in part to force a political crisis and a conversation. Now, several people did actually die as that ship was trying to disembark its passengers over several days. Was Italy wrong to close its ports to that ship?
It is not so easy to judge. Of course, solidarity and respect for human lives and also for international law must be one of our primary concerns. But remember what I said about the perfect storms of crisis. Italy is also under one economic crisis as well. 97% of the income of the Italian households have been either falling or stable the last decade. So in Italy and in the rest of Europe, this economic crisis, these concerns of the middle class that their children are going to have a worse life than their own, is reflected to an identity crisis in countries like Hungary, Poland, and in this, let's say, anxiety regarding the refugee issues in countries like Italy. You must also have in mind that Italy, like Spain and Greece, have been frontline countries, those that they have received most of the burden of the migratory crisis. And exactly, we have not received till now, all these countries or these first border countries, the necessary solidarity from some, not from all, European countries.
Well, looking at the situation in terms of solutions that are being put forward, it seems that there's a focus right now on what's happening with migrants outside of the EU's borders, and in fact trying to stop people ever reaching EU territory. There's talk of migrant processing centres in North Africa or perhaps the Balkans. Of course, outside of EU territory, EU law does not apply. There are concerns about the rights of people being upheld in these countries. We've seen slave auctions happening in Libya, for example.
Absolutely. And it is not just the humanitarian concerns. I would agree that it is important to have the Africans or the Asians not coming to Europe, but not by making Europe as a fortress, but by helping growth in the respective countries, help these countries to have their prosperity guaranteed so as to have their citizens there.
That takes a very long time, though, doesn't it? We're talking about countries where there's been, Afghanistan, for example, war for decades. Economic development is going to take an even longer time, surely. And political timelines, the public's timelines, don't accommodate that.
I'm also realist. And I would answer to this argument by saying that even in the United States, when they have tried to make United States a fortress and build this famous wall in Mexico and have these surveillance cameras, they did not succeed to minimize the flows of illegal immigrants. Exactly because if you are a rich country in a sea of poverty, the poor people would find a way to come in. I'm not saying that we should not make every effort possible to keep our borders as the borders should be. But this is not the final solution for the migration problem. The final solution should be one that has in mind the root causes of migration, poverty, inequalities, have in mind how to guard the frontiers, because we are not in a state of international law of open borders. The borders should be kept. But also having in mind how to change the European law so as it is not a sole responsibility of first entry countries, the regulation of migration flows. Now it's a completely unfair share of burden. This that puts all the weight of the crisis to Greece, Italy and Spain.
Well, let's move on to the other big topic for Greece over the last decade, the economy, particularly the recent news that Greece is exiting its European bailout programme. The Finance Commissioner, Pierre Moscovici, said the Greek crisis ends here. However, your country still has debt equivalent to 180% of GDP. Youth unemployment is over 40% still. Wages have dropped by 20% since the year 2010. Isn't this just wishful thinking by Pierre Moscovici and the Commission?
Well, our solution for the problem was not the one that we have been forced to accept as a compromise in July 2015. And you are right to say that when we entered this safety mechanism, our debt was 120% of the GDP, now it's 50% bigger. But we had to accept the conditions imposed to us that contained a very big part of austerity measures. We tried, however, to countermeasure this austerity that contained also a lot of neoliberal provisions for which we felt completely hostile, with a parallel program of our own. And we managed to end this adjustment program, which supported not just on economic reasons, but also on political ones. We are having now back our lost democratic sovereignty. And we hope that in the 1.5 years we have till the next elections, we'll manage to restore some of the losses of the Greek people during this period.
Indeed, elections due in Greece by October 2019. We'll come to that in just a minute. Right now, I'd like to get some personal points of view from Greeks about how the economy is going. There was a real brain drain, as we know, of young, qualified Greeks as austerity took hold, many going to the UK, the United States and other countries. Many of them now starting to come back. Take a look at this report from France 2 and Delano de Souza.
It's seen as a homecoming for a number of Greeks. Many who left the country as the debt crisis wreaked havoc on the economy have slowly started to return. Like Talia Misalidou, between 2010 and 2017 she worked in the United Kingdom and then in Germany. She's now recently taken up a job at a venture capital firm in Athens.
I didn't have any trouble finding multiple opportunities, and especially this one that was, a big step up for my career. So I think that if you look, you're probably going to find more than one option.
Talia isn't alone. Others like her have returned home for more personal reasons. Alexandros Skouras worked at a research center in the United States. He made his return home a couple of months ago, heading a small research facility in the capital.
Returning to Greece and striving for improvements here to be extremely fulfilling. Right, so I might, so many of the people who come back, they get less money, right? And they have to deal with a worse system probably than what they left. But there is an individual reward for that, which is having a more fulfilling life, having a support network when you decide to start a family.
Unemployment in the country has fallen substantially from 28% in 2013 to around 21% today, still higher than the rest of the EU. The average salary in Greece is around €920 a month. That's 60% lower than in France and Germany. It explains why approximately 400,000 Greeks left the country to find opportunities overseas. Companies are also thinking up new ways to lure back expat workers. This tech firm is offering a bonus targeting Greeks based overseas.
It's 5,000 to 10,000 euro bonus upon signing a contract with us. I mean, we had like tons of applications. Very soon we will have a number of people.
For now, it's only the Greek private sector that can afford to be so generous. The government, meanwhile, acknowledges the importance in reversing the brain drain.
It's really hurting the economy in the sense that it's already, obvious that if you want to find, particular skills, it's very hard to find them. And when you find them, because they are very scarce, they are quite expensive in order to employ.
Greece's economy grew by 2.3% in the first quarter of 2018, its highest level in 10 years. A reverse brain drain could help boost that figure even further.
Well, there you go. So the big question now, what now for the Greek economy, really? Greeks tell us that they are sick of high taxes. One person I know in Greece who's a freelancer says that 85% of their income goes on taxes and social charges. Are you in a position to improve this?
Yes, 85, of course, it's not true, but it is very high, exactly because when you have 1/3 of the population out of employment, their share should be put to those that still work. And this is not fair, of course, for them, but it's the only way out of the problem. The only way out is through development, and we are hoping to have this kind of inclusive development for all. And the young people are right to protest. They have been the main victims of the crisis. In the apex of the crisis, 27% unemployment, 60% among the young, and a lot of them have fled. Now it's relatively better, 7% lower unemployment, but still at a monstrous 20%.
Well, people still suffering, and as we mentioned before the report, you have got the election coming up by October of next year. Recent polls indicate that the government and Syriza are not going to win that election. How do you plan to try and win over the electorate?
We are exactly going to show to the Greek people that the situation is improving. Miracles cannot happen, but now Greece is back to growth after 8 years of recession, after having lost about 27% of our national wealth, our GDP. And exactly we want to use these 14, 15 months till the elections in order to make these gains of the economy to be reflected also in the society, to the lives of every day of the average Greeks. And we are confident that we can do that.
All right, just one other international bit of news that's very current to this summit. The former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, a northern neighbour of Greece. Your Prime Minister recently agreed on a new name for that territory, Northern Macedonia. This was meant to pave the way for that country to start its accession into the EU. However, the Macedonian president has said he's against it. Apparently, a majority of Greeks, according to public opinion, are against it as well. Is this something that really can be solved?
Well, listen, nationalistic circles in both countries want to cancel the agreement. And it is true that in both countries, even to people that are average normal patriots who have patriotic feelings but not nationalistic, they have still doubts about the agreement. Exactly because it's not so easy to dissipate an atmosphere of distrust of many decades. But exactly for this reason, we had to try to resolve a problem that was solvable. It was not one of the big issues that we have that need more time, like the issues we have with Turkey, for instance.
Do you think there will be a solution?
We have a solution. We have now...
Will it be accepted?
They are going to have a referendum, and I hope that exactly because this agreement is for them a ticket for Europe, they are going to win it. And I'm confident that we can pass this agreement from the Greek Parliament.
All right, let's talk about another neighbour of Greece's, Turkey. Also huge public fears in Greece over, the re-election of President Erdogan recently. He has taken a much more authoritarian turn in recent years. There are fears about recent violations of Greek airspace by Turkish military planes, Turkish ships in the Aegean. What do you, as Europe Minister, expect from President Erdogan in the next few years to come?
First of all, I should say that Greek people and Turkish people have a very close mentality, and when we are among each other, we do not have real problems among us. On the other hand, Turkey is following a kind of revisionistic policy, putting in doubt agreements of international law. And it is also true that in the last, let's say, months, we had a rise of tension between our two countries. We want to keep the European perspectives of Turkey open, exactly because we have an interest, both as Greece and as Europe, to have a European and not a hostile Turkey in our frontiers. And we hope that now that President Erdogan is re-elected and there is not any need for using the external policy as an internal argument for the Turkish electorate, maybe there is a chance for better bilateral relations and also better relations of Turkey with Europe and the West.
All right, some cautious optimism there, perhaps. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you very much for speaking to us on Talking Europe. Geórgios Katroúgalos, the European Affairs Minister of Greece. Thanks to you as well for watching. We'll see you soon here on Talking Europe on France 24.
France 24, c'est la richesse de la diversité culturelle mondiale, avec un réseau de correspondants à travers la planète.
En France 24 en español comunicamos a Latinoamérica con el mundo entero.
روح مهنية شعارها واحد، حرية التعبير. هذه هي بصمة France 24.
Africa on France 24 is about its people and their stories.
Los ciudadanos nos cuentan cuáles son las iniciativas y las problemáticas que tienen en sus comunidades a través del programa Los Observadores. Eso los acerca aún más a France 24.
Welcome to Russia. Until July 15th, the country will be living and breathing football. Tune in every day for the latest on World Cup 2018 from our reporters on the ground. All the teams, all the results, all the stories. It's all here on France 24.
Join us every day for our live coverage of all the World Cup action.